Hello, everypony. Critical Thought here, bringing you guys probably what is to be the last time I talk about Coppa. So if you guys have watched my previous videos on Coppa, you'll know that I've been quite afraid of what's going to happen with Coppa. But you'll also notice that after I post this video, those videos are now deleted from my channel. Why? Because I think that those are outdated information, and this is the current information that I want to provide to viewers of this channel. So uh, basically, I mean, if you don't know what Coppa is by now, then I'm gonna just say go look it up because I've talked about it talked about it enough, and plus I don't know how much of the information that we initially got is still relevant anymore. But if you don't know what it is, go search it up. There's plenty of YouTubers talking about it. So basically, what I want to make this video for, and why I deleted all that previous information, is that I am thinking now that Coppa is probably going to be mostly okay. So there's a couple of things that I really wanted to discuss here, and that's the issue of fines. I know I talked about the issue of fines in one of my previous videos, but since that video is now gone, I want to reiterate and kind of update that as a little bit. And I also wanted to talk about the general audience kind of problem that YouTube is having, where you mark your videos as either not for kids or for kids, and there's really no middle ground for channels like me, who, yes, I'm covering a kid's subject, but it's not targeted at kids, and it's more for it's I rate it more like PG-13 my content. So this video comes off the heels of me watching a couple videos from this YouTuber named KreekCraft. I'll put both of the videos that he made about Coppa that I'm going to be summarizing in this video up in the iCard. I don't know which way it is, so I'm not going to point to it. But there's a lot of good news. Okay, there's a lot of good news about Coppa. So the first thing I want to talk about, of course, is the fines. Now, in my previous video, I talked about, the $42,000 fine that people are talking about per video. Well, the reason that I wanted to talk about these two videos that KreekCraft posted is because the first one is him actually sitting down and talking to a couple of the chairmen at the FTC who helped with this whole Coppa law. So he sits down and talks with them, and in the second video, he gets a response from YouTube about the Coppa situation. So one of the things that was brought up was the fine. Now, in my last video, I talked about how it's not really going to be a big deal, but I'll expand on that now. So basically, the $42,000 fine that the FTC landed on is a worst case scenario, because the reason that they landed on $42,000, I believe it's $42,350 exactly, is that's how much it takes to pay everyone at the FTC for 1 year, and keep the lights on at the FTC, because it's one of the few branches of government that don't actually rely that heavily on taxpayer money. I mean, they still get a little bit of it, but they more heavily rely on lawsuits and donations and stuff like that. So they landed on that as a worst case scenario, and that will fund the FTC for 1 year if somebody is caught violating Coppa and given the max punishment. But it's not going to be that $42,000 fine for everyone. That's going to be a case-by-case basis. So what they're going to be doing is, if you are caught violating Coppa, they're going to look at your ad revenue as well as some other supplemental information about brand deals or stuff like that you're involved in, to calculate your total business income that you've made off of violating Coppa, apply a multiplier to it, and then that's going to be your fine. We don't know what the multiplier is, how much it is, but the one thing that KreekCraft made sure to say in his video is that they aren't out to bankrupt any creators, and they aren't going after creators maliciously. This isn't an attack on digital creation as a source of business. It's not a anti-YouTube sentiment from the FTC. It's just they're wanting to do right by the law. And they also said that they also recognize that people's livelihoods are built up in YouTube. People are paying for their rent or their child's education through YouTube, making videos on YouTube, and they don't want to ruin people's livelihoods with a bankrupting fine. So So they're going to be taking into account how much money you've made from the violating videos, and then applying that multiplier to it, but still keeping it within a reasonable amount that you can afford to pay. They're not going to just give you a $42,000 fine when you're only making a couple $100 a month off of YouTube and say, well, it's not our problem if you can't pay it. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to make sure that whatever you can afford to pay, they're going to, I mean, it's still going to probably hurt a bit, but they're going to take into account how much you can afford to pay them and land on a fine that doesn't completely cripple you while still giving them what they're owed. So that's good. And if you don't make any money on YouTube like me, then you're probably safe anyway, because, you know, like I said, it is based on how much money you're taking in from the violating content. So that's good. And the second thing, like I said, that he wanted to bring up in his video was general audience, because when you put a video up on YouTube now with the new Coppa integrations, you're supposed to mark it as either for kids or not for kids. And that leaves no middle ground for someone who tries to make family-friendly content. So content that is, content that is, you know, more targeted towards general audience and families than actual specifically kids. Now, there's a lot of confusion going around between what the FTC was saying to him and what YouTube was saying to him for these videos. Made it seem like general audience fell within the 4 kids guideline. YouTube is saying it's not. So there was some confusion about that. But the good thing, and it's a good thing that and the reason I specifically bring up these videos is that one example that KreekCraft made to the FTC chairman specifically was bronies. He brought up the My Little Pony fandom to the FTC specifically. This isn't me trying to, you know, stretch this into, well, this is really about toys, but it could be about bronies. No. He specifically asked the FTC about bronies, about us in the MLP fandom. And guess what? The FTC is aware that we exist. The FTC is aware that bronies and people of all kinds of fandoms, of all kinds of things that could be considered childish or could be considered for kids, they acknowledge that adults exist in these fandoms and content is created for those adults that are in this fandom. So they aren't going to really attack people who are, you know, just trying to create fandom content. And the example that KreekCraft gave is that, well, maybe if you're covering, I don't know, like say, for example, a cover of the Dora the Explorer theme song, maybe they might go after you for that. But if you're making content that is not targeting kids directly with that, then you're probably going to be fine. And so I'm glad that he brought up bronies specifically, because that answers a big question for us in the MLP community about how we apply to Coppa. So there's that, and they said there was some miscommunication going on between the FTC and YouTube about general audience content and where it fell within the Coppa guidelines. Well, in his second video, KreekCraft posted a response from YouTube. I've seen the response myself. And YouTube has said that if you make general audience content that is not targeting kids, then you should mark your videos as not for kids. And of course, this goes against what the FTC said, that, well, if it's general audience, then you should be marking it for kids because the general audience is a subset of 4 kids. So there was some confusion going on there, obviously. But to clarify, since KreekCraft now does have a contact at the FTC, he contacted the FTC about this and asked about, can we get some confirmation on YouTube's response? Is YouTube legally correct to say that content not directed at children, that is directed towards a more general audience, can be marked as not for kids and not be in violation of Coppa? And the FTC responded that, yes, YouTube is correct. That if it's general audience, you do not have to mark it as not for kids. Or you don't have to mark it as for kids, I should say. So that is good news. And like I said, there's a whole lot more nuanced stuff that he goes into in his 2 videos, and I'll put them in iCards up on the screen. But the important thing I was leading up to with this is where I stand now as a channel. So I deleted those 2 videos about Coppa, and I'm going to be reinstating all my old videos as not for kids. Because based on the clarification on the fines, as well as the clarification from YouTube that not for kids is it can apply to general audience content, I think I'm safe. I'm fairly confident that I am safe. I'm still keeping my Patreon. I'm not going to be using it all that much, but in the case that I do need it, it'll be there. And another thing, too, is that all of our comments that we left from the FTC, which I kind of regret my comment now, because I realized that my comment should have been more directed towards YouTube rather than the FTC, because a lot of the stuff I complained about in my comment to the FTC, they have nothing to do with. That's all on YouTube. So they basically said that what they're going to do with all those comments, there's over 173,000 comments that people have left on the regulation website, is they're going to spend the next probably half a year going through those individually. People will sit down and individually go through every single one of those 173,000 comments and keep an eye on what people are actually saying about it, what people's concerns are. And once they finish reviewing all those comments, they'll sit down. It'll take maybe a couple years to do, but they'll sit down and re-revise Coppa and put another public forum out once they re-revise Coppa, showing all the changes they've made and opening up another thread of discussion. And they will keep going through this however long it takes until everyone is satisfied. And that's going to be how they approach the law. So it's going to take a while, and we're going to have to deal with the current implementation of Coppa for quite a while, but the FTC is committed to getting this law right, just as they do every single law. They have changed laws in the past based on public feedback, and it's going to take a while, but they will eventually settle on something that we can all agree on, and that we can help protect kids while also protecting our livelihoods and our careers and our passions for YouTube. So that's really all I wanted to say. Make sure you go watch those 2 videos by KreekCraft. Again, they're in the iCard. I'll maybe even put them in the description as well. And I apologize for not doing a review in 3 weeks. I've been preoccupied with other things. It's not because of Coppa that I'm not doing videos, or it's not because of anything else. I've really just been procrastinating on doing it, which I don't know why, because my next review is going to be an interesting one. It's Simple Ways, so there's that. I will be getting to that sooner rather than later, so just keep an eye out. It is coming. I'm not giving up on YouTube just yet, but it's just going to take a while. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Remember, as always, never stop thinking critically. Peace.